Welcome to the Big Brian
Welcome
Show.
to the Big Brian Show.
To the Big Brian Show.
Nice.
Oh, I think the tariffs are going to be the greatest thing we've ever done as a country. It's going to make our country rich again.
Are you worried about a recession? Maria Bartiromo asked you, and you kind of hesitated.
I'll tell you what, of course you hesitate. All I know is this. We're going to take in hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs, and we're going to become so rich, you're not going to know where to spend all that money. I'm telling you, you just watch.
President, are you alarmed by
democracy if you destroy your middle and working class? You can't. It's impossible. And that's what we've done. And so now we are facing the specter of this, rolling kind of fascism. And you're right, people vote for it. People vote for it out of rage, out of anger, out of desperation. I don't forgive some of the, views of my relatives in Maine, but at the same time, I don't demonize them. It's mostly based on ignorance. But the people I can forgive are the people like Elon Musk or Trump. I mean, let's be clear. I mean, these people are racist to the core. I mean, they don't even try and hide it that much. And they're also misogynists and everything else. So.
Well, President Milei has a gift for me. Javier Milei from Argentina. You guys know who that is, right? This is the chainsaw for bureaucracy. Chainsaw!
You should have never started that war with Russia. My loyalty is with Putin. I want to be a dictator just like him. He's a tough guy.
Remember during the campaign when Trump claimed that immigrants were taking black jobs?
They're taking black jobs.
Well, Trump just fired Air Force General C.Q. Brown, the highest-ranking black person in the military, and replaced him with a lower-ranking white guy. If you haven't noticed, Trump is the one who's taking black jobs. Trump fired Glenn Wilcox, the chair of the National Labor Relations Board, who was the first black woman board member. He replaced Lloyd Austin, the black Secretary of Defense, with an unqualified white Fox News host. He replaced Michael Regan, the black EPA administrator, with an anti-environment white guy who immediately ended EPA's Justice 40 program that funded black communities. And he's firing thousands of federal government workers with a disproportionate impact on black people. At the Education Department, where nearly 30% of employees are black, 60 of the 74 workers who have been let go are black. At the Department of Health and Human Services, where 1,300 people were laid off, 20% of the staff was black. At the Veterans Affairs Department, which lost 1,000 employees, 24% of the staff was black. Trump officials aren't even hiding their racist motives. White men must be in charge of everything, they say. Ever since Truman desegregated the armed forces in 1948 and Kennedy and Johnson banned racial discrimination in the federal workforce in the 1960s, the military and federal government were the few places where black people could get a good job in an era of racial discrimination. My father served in the military, and my mom and grandmother both worked for the federal government for decades, which allowed my family to move into the middle class when I was a child. That's why black people make up 13.7% of the U.S. population, but account for nearly 19% of federal workers. And that's why Washington, D.C., which used to be called Chocolate City before gentrification, once had the highest median income for black people of any city in the country. But last month, Trump rescinded the anti-discrimination rules that have been in place since the 1960s, so he could fire black people at will. We are witnessing the most sweeping presidential attack on black workers since Woodrow Wilson segregated the federal workforce in 1913. Adam Serwer at The Atlantic calls it the Great Resegregation. The reason why Trump is attacking the federal workforce is precisely because it is often more meritocratic and therefore more integrated than the private sector, says Serwer. To get a job in the federal civil service, you have to meet the posted qualifications. But in the private sector, especially in building trades, jobs. A lot of people get jobs through their social networks, according to political scientist Ashley Jardino. Trump purposely misuses DEI as a synonym for unqualified black people, but he hires the most unqualified white people to run the Pentagon,
I don't think I've washed my hands for 10 years.
transportation, education, and HHS, and he allowed unqualified teenage boys to rummage through your personal information in government databases. But for young black people who are developing skills to enter the workforce, the Trump administration just halted a federal scholarship program for HBCU students. All this has happened since January, yet the East Room black people are still grinning and spinning for the white man in chief in the White House. Happy Black History Month.